Joining us now from the 7th District, Republican candidate for Congress, Dr. Dave Brat from Randolph-Macon College. Professor Brat, great to have you with us.
Hey, John, great to be on.
Now, I want to get straight to some of the topics of the day, and I know you've spent a lot of time in the district connecting with people. By the way, great event last Saturday. That was fabulous. I just want to toss that out there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Laura Ingraham and Jeff Sessions are hard to beat. Unbelievable heroes.
As you know, on WHKT AM 1650 at 10 a.m., Laura Ingraham follows me. Now, Dave, I want to get to the Ebola outbreak. Republicans now criticizing President Obama for not doing two things. One being as forthright with it. Remember, 2 weeks ago he said it wouldn't enter the U.S., and then he's getting criticism from me and Rand Paul and others that he should have gone to the State Department and had visas suspended for people in those areas from coming into the U.S. How do you stand on this?
Yeah, well, I stand with common sense and the ideas you just covered. The responsibility in the Constitution that all have to take an oath to, as well as to first and foremost protect the American people. And so those are just kind of common sense first steps. And I mean, we need to have a strategy in place, well thought out ahead of time. So when you hit a situation like this, it's execution time instead of trying to figure out what to do. I mean, they're having problems guarding the White House these days, much less more complex issues like this. So yeah, we need to quarantine off any areas where the folks are coming from and keep our folks safe in the short run. I think it's just a 20-day thing, so it's pain, but it's the safe route to go.
So, Dave, would you be in favor of the administration directing the State Department basically to stop anybody in the affected areas temporarily from coming into the United States?
Yeah, I don't want to make any blanket statements because you got healthcare workers and all sorts of folks,
right,
coming in and going out. But yeah, in general, I mean, just the idea that we have to block that Ebola from spreading, sure, that's just the common sense route.
Dave, let's get to the ISIS situation. Bombs dropping all over the place. We have no declaration of war, no authorization from Congress. Now we find out that another 2,500 Marines have been deployed into Kuwait under a separate name. We've got 1,600 troops, advisors in Iraq, and this war has so far cost us $1 billion. Dave, we're bombing our own equipment. What do you think the answer is here?
Well, you hate to. I don't want to dive in the weeds on the tactics right now, but the answer is clear. The answer is the fifth plank of the Republican creed in Virginia is peace is best preserved through a strong national defense. And last night I was at the American Legion with the men and women who serve, and I gave some talking points, and I mean just one after the other. You know, the Army's down 50%, the Navy's down 50%, the Air Force is down 50%, the civilian workforce of the country is at its lowest level in the history of the Defense Department. The Army's at its World War II levels. The Navy's at its World War I levels. And so, the issues we're experiencing today are a function of that. And then that all ties back into the economics. Why is our military weak? Because our economy's weak, and the entitlement programs are squeezing out the military expenditure. So I showed the folks a graph last night. It was just, the entitlements are just the line going straight up, and defense is going down, and the one's choking out the other. And so the military, there are 18 enumerated powers in the United States Constitution. The military is 6 of them.
Right.
And so that is the proper first role for the federal government, right? The rest, we can have the states and localities and families try to do better with. But that role is being crowded out. And so we're weak, and the rest of the world knows it, and that's what's producing a vacuum in all these issues. And so peace is best preserved through a strong defense. So what would I do over there? We have to go get rid of ISIS. We should have done it a couple months ago. They were clearly marked walking down the road.
Right.
And now we're dealing with it after the fact when people, they're going to be smart, they're going to get embedded in the populations, and now we're in a mess.
You're on the ballot on November 4th 2 times. The first time is to be seated immediately. So you would, if you were to win, or if Jack Trammell wins, either of you are going to be seated immediately November 5. So you'd be part of the, quote, lame duck session. If indeed you do win on that segment, are you going to ask this president, along with Democratic U.S. Senator Tim Kaine and others, to come back to Congress and receive an authorization for war?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our responsibility. George Will just had a piece on that yesterday, just the Congress, why are people running for congressional slots when they're ceding their power at every turn over to the executive branch? And so I'm not running to do that. I'm running to take the constitutional power seriously and to act and represent the people in the 7th District, and I have a great district to represent, and so it's going to be easy for me to do. But everybody wants me to follow the Constitution, and that's what's called for.
President Obama yesterday nationalizing the selection, basically trying to ask the question his own way, what President Reagan did in 1980, are you better off 4 or 6 years ago? But the thing that he said is, he said that the deficit as a percentage was declining, yet, Dave, to the average person, the national debt is approaching $18 trillion. Anybody with a calculator knows this is unsustainable, right? It's totally unsustainable. Yep. It's doubled since he's been there, yet you got the president saying, under my leadership, the deficit percentage-wise has gone down. How does this I mean, you're an economist. How does this math work?
Well, I mean, it's just interesting, first of all, to notice what he's saying and when he's saying it, right? So the economy is still the number one issue, and jobs are not to be found. 40% of college kids can't find a job right now. Median wages, the average wages, are going down, and so he has to address it in some way. And so the only way he can is to try to come up, have the smart people in the room come up with some numbers that something's going down. So he says the deficit's going down as if that's good news. Well, it's gone down from $1 trillion, right? We had three or $4 trillion deficits in a row, and now the good news is it's only $500 billion that we're putting the next generation into debt this year. And so, right, those are adding up, and then the unfunded liabilities go to the bottom of the U.S. debt clock, and the debt is $18 trillion, but the unfunded liabilities are $127 trillion, and that was the centerpiece of what I ran on. I got my 15 minutes of fame, and so some smart people are telling me use it wisely. Mm-hmm. And they said you better pick the issue that's most important to you, and that issue is entitlement reform. That's a $127 trillion problem, and the president won't mention that, of course. And he will, he's not going to give you the full narrative here. The Federal Reserve balance sheet has $3.5 trillion on it. That's kind of a sugar pill for the economy right now. So the economy's going to grow at 1.5% this year, most likely. That's low. It should be up at 3 or 4% growth, and he's not going to mention that. And the growth we have is artificial because we're on that Fed printing press. They're printing money. And we're going to peel that back someday, and when we do, the interest rates are going to go up. And then the interest payments on the debt, you want to hear some scary numbers, those follow as well.
I want to stick with this debt and deficit for one moment. You mentioned entitlement reform. The last time we really had that was in the 90s when President Clinton and Newt Gingrich basically, quote, ended welfare as we knew it back then. Now that's all come back. All that's been stripped away. There's another 10 million people on food stamps since Obama took office. Entitlements keep going up. So every time a Republican or anybody tries to get involved with it, everybody goes crazy because you're going to be taking something away. So it sounds great on the radio, but practically, how would this ever be done?
Well, our narrative has to get better, right? I mean, the Republicans need to show people why we are the good news. It's always easy to offer up, free goodies that fall out of heaven. That's attractive to people in the short run.
Sure.
But what I didn't mention, those 4 programs, and this is without including interest costs, right? So those 4 programs alone will take up the entire federal budget by 2040. So there's going to be a government shutdown. There's not going to be any government if you follow the White House and Democrat Senate trajectory right now. People get upset about the talk of a government shutdown in the short run. There's going to be a government shutdown because there's no money for government in 2040 when our kids are finally in their mature years. And so we need to do a better job of showing, and that's without any interest costs that are going to skyrocket being built in there too. It could be as soon as 2030, and that's just around the corner when it comes to strategic planning for your nation. And so it's that bad, and we have to offer up a positive alternative and make it clear. When I ran, I said no one knows that number, $127 trillion.
Right.
I went across it; no one knew about it. And so Congress members, if you bring those up, it's not a popular, happy, feel-good message that gets you elected, but it's the responsible adult in the room thing to do. And so that's why I'm bringing it up. I'm running for that reason. And I've taught economics to 20-year-olds in front of me all day. And just by the way, they're the only group that does not have a high-powered lobbyist in D.C.
Right.
Right. Every other group has lobbyists and people representing their interests, and that's part of the Madisonian constitutional architecture, which is okay. We want groups competing against each other up there,
right?
But we want to keep them small, and the young generation doesn't have anyone speaking for them. So that's just the irony of ironies, how we do not represent our own kids and their future, and instead we're taking part in intergenerational theft. It's completely unethical.
When you talk about entitlement reform and that $127 million, if you were in Congress 6 months ago, the leadership and Republicans basically voted to raise the debt again and basically give Obama a blank check. If you were in Congress 7 months ago, would you have voted yes on that or no?
Well, it's a good question. I have the luxury of not being trapped, and I won't get cued on it, but the debt ceiling increase is a bill that always comes a year after your spending and budget bill. And so my answer to that is a serious one. I will vote against a debt ceiling increase if it doesn't match up with the logic I give on the budget side. And so the politics got sideways on that one, right? When you do ethics, you put the rules down ahead of time so everybody knows what your principles are. And so I'm going to announce spending limits that I believe in. And then if the spending goes beyond that, then I will vote for not pursuing a debt ceiling increase.
We get a lot of answers from politicians, and I'm not taking issue with your answer, but it's like, well, I would have voted if it was that way or this way. But here's the reality. If you win, you're going to be one of 435, and
Yep.
It is what it is. It goes up, you sit there, and you have to push the green button or the red button. So I'm going to get back to what I asked. If the same thing came up with just that, would you have voted yes or no?
Well, that's why I don't want to get in hypotheticals on past votes. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I will have the luxury of laying out my logic to the people on spending bills. But you can, upcoming, there'll be continuing resolutions and budgets and et cetera, so I'll answer for you that way because it gets to what you're getting at. I will vote against budgets that have no teeth when it comes to entitlement reform. And I won't vote for these gigantic monstrosity, continuing resolutions that lump everything in there under the sun and just keep spending going the way it is. So that'll be the no vote. And then when the debt ceiling votes come up following, I'll vote no if they don't do some of that as well. And to be fair, I would have voted against the past debt ceiling increase you're talking about. Because I would have laid out the same spending principles that we're talking about here.
Right, okay, so I got the answer. If you were there, you would have voted no. Dave, I got 2 minutes. I want to get to immigration. President Obama making a big speech yesterday promising Hispanic caucus that he was going to address immigration reform as soon as the midterms are over. Do you think that's the right thing to do, or should he be addressing it now?
Well, no, I mean, I just read in the paper. I mean, at the end of his announcement, he said, "Go to the polls and vote on this. You know, you should be outraged or whatever." So he's dividing the nation along a divisive issue that has to do with the rule of law. My own newspaper is misquoting me out of context on this one. Everybody's playing politics with it. And so what I've said all the way through, right, at first I was against immigration reform, and that's some tricky language there. What that is a pathway for citizenship for anywhere between 6 to 8 million illegal immigrants to gain a pathway to citizenship. So they never explain it with clear language. And so crony capitalism was at play. Big corporations want cheap labor. And so that was round number one. Round number two, we had the KIDS Act and the DREAM Act and the Enlist Act. We put up a green light, and 50 to 100,000 orphans are coming across our border now, and it's an absolute crisis. And even Mexico is mad at us because now Mexico is having to deal with some of that problem as well. And then the third round, which is the most horrendous of all, is now ISIS is a national security threat, and they're looking for a way to come in to our country. Well, I mean, take a guess, right? The southern border is wide open. We're not enforcing any laws on the book.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, President Obama, it's very cynical politics that doesn't serve anyone's interest. The answer, of course, is to spread free markets and the rule of law. That's why everybody wants to come here in the first place. We're the wealthiest, most powerful nation on earth because we enforce the rule of law. And so Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, we need to get them that same constitutional framework, share free markets. That's what we did with our arch enemies, Germany and Japan, after the war. And now they're our friends and allies, and we're trading with them. And so that's the answer. That will feed the poor countries, just as the Chinese and India, right, for the first time in world history.
Hey, Dave, what's your website?
Good. Yeah, just DaveBrat.com. DaveBrat, BRAT.com.